Good to go. Yep.
Michael, yes, sir.
So, it's a good presentation. So the 9.4 that you've raised, is that, how much of that is equity and how much of that is things like grants and those
All of it has been in equity. In terms of government grants, there's an additional $3 million that I haven't included in that. So that 9.4 has all been in equity investments, primarily from angels.
And the regulatory path, is it a 510K or PMA?
It's a PMA. So there's 3 steps to it. There's the preclinical, where we have to prove safety and efficacy. We're midway through that, and everything's looking very good right now. And then there's a pilot clinical, which is 20 to 30 patients, and once we've completed that, then the pivotal is about 150 to 200 patients for our first application.
Okay. So you had, as far as your timeline, 2016, is that to complete the pilot clinicals?
That's to complete the pilot clinicals, yes.
And so what would be the clinical endpoints for
So-
that study and for the
So for that particular indication, we're looking at the simplest method, simplest route to market, which is the dental application. So, and the market for that is about $1.5 billion, North American market for that.
Okay. So what kind of strength does it have? I mean, you've indicated that you know, you potentially use it for spine and other orthopedic, but the type of weight bearing that's needed for some other applications is much less than, say, to hold the tooth in place. So what kind of studies have you done about what sort of strength your product gives that it could be used to replace part of a knee or part of a spine?
Fair enough. Very good question. In fact, when we are an embryo, what happens is the same protein directs the formation of bone. And what's unique about it is that our body has different bones, and each one of them has a different shape to it. And back in the late 19th century, a Dr. Moss talked about the functional theory of bone regeneration. He said that bone takes on the form and function, or form and shape of whatever function it assumes. What we have found, to directly answer your question, is that the bone that is regenerated actually, by all parameters, and we've done physical chemistry testing, we've done histology, we've done the biomechanical testing, is identical to the bone that was at that site when it was there and healthy. So it's identical to what you would normally expect at that site.
Okay. So, but in the trials, so it would be a dental application?
Correct.
All right. So what's the primary endpoint, say, in your pivotal study?
The primary endpoint is to support the placement of a dental implant, which would eventually support a tooth.
All right. So what kind of quantitative measurements does the FDA require?
So what we're looking at is doing a cone beam CT, which is a special kind of CT scan that gives you a 3-dimensional image of the resultant bone that has been formed, and that would then allow you to place an implant. So there's 2 components: the ability to place the implant and the form of the bone after.
Okay. Is that the same endpoints that the Medtronic was approved on?
Our technology capabilities are significantly better than they were 10 years ago when Medtronic did this. So it's essentially the same endpoint, but we can be a little bit more precise.
Let's go to Courtney real quick, we'll come back.
Sure.
Courtney?
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I'll ask my questions, then I'll ask 2 or 3 questions of the expert who couldn't have made it here, put on the table. And as it relates to risk, and you
Yes.
probably touched on it very briefly, what are the risks that you have identified taking you up to 2016? How do you plan to de-risk them? And even as the products are in the market, what sort of risk do you see to the consumer? That's number 1. Number 2, the manufacturing and supply chain. You said you have the proprietary manufacturing. Does that mean that the manufacturing facility is physically in Canada? Or is it cross-border in some place like Asia? And if yes, then what are your risk mitigation strategies if it's cross-border? That's my questions.
So we manufacture, let me start off with that and I'll come back.
Sure.
We manufacture through a company in Canada right now. Essentially, when it comes to protein manufacture, many proteins such as insulin are manufactured using the exact same process that we use. So there are a number of different companies, both Canada, Europe, Asia, United States, that manufacture, that are contract manufacturers for these types of proteins. One of our initial investors was actually one of these companies wanting to make a name for themselves in this particular space. So we have aligned ourselves with one CMO that does our protein manufacturing. However, the SOP, or the operating procedures that we're developing there can be moved anywhere. And in fact, I was over in Asia just last year this time and identified 2 or 3 different operations that could do the same thing. The issue is quality control and managing the end product that comes out. At this point, we feel we can significantly reduce, we've already significantly reduced the cost base of this particular protein in North American manufacturing, and we're concerned about going outside of North America to manufacture. We may move that manufacturing facility from Canada to another facility in the States, but we would prefer to keep it in North America for the present time. In terms of risk mitigation, in terms of the moving forward in the other areas, obviously we're dealing with a clinical product that is will be implanted in humans. So there is a certain amount of uncertainty as to what the end result will be of any clinical trial. As I indicated, we've treated over 100 patients using the basic strategy that we have. As I indicated, all 3 components of our product are already FDA approved, and you can actually purchase them. The problem by purchasing them independently, putting them together, 1, you don't get the advantage of release that we have, and 2, you don't get the, it's very, very expensive. So unfortunately, to do that one case I showed, it's about $10,000 worth of product, whereas our product will come in around $2,000 for the same unit.
Okay, thank you for that. The expert question is not here is, she would like to know if you have, do you have your own preclinical crossover capabilities, and what modalities do you cover with your technology?
So I'm assuming this relates to our clinical trials.
Yes.
So,
Sorry.
as I indicated, we're quite fortunate to have Nancy Coulson formerly from Bausch & Lomb and J&J, who's now running our studies. She has relationships with a number of different organizations. We're using a large US CRO called NAMSA, and they're a very reputable organization, and we've been working very closely with them and the FDA. We've had a number of meetings with the FDA to talk about our study and how it's going to be designed and undertaken, and so far they've agreed with everything that we've said. So we're very pleased with the positive relation. Having someone like Nancy on our team, and having the profile that she's had with the FDA helps us out a lot.
Okay,
We're
thank
quite
you.
fortunate.
Have you looked into trials in other places less rigorous than the FDA to sort of build momentum?
Actually, yes, to a large extent. The issue is we want to be a quality product. The opportunity for this product is in the billions of dollars. If we take, so the answer to your question is yes, we have looked, and yes, we have gone and explored China, we've explored the Middle East, we've explored Russia. As I told you earlier, I went to Siberia, and I was actually working on orphan children at an orphanage in Siberia, but it was the home of some big developments in bone growth there, and so they were very keen on doing trials there. But the minute you have an adverse event, you have a surgeon who takes the product and uses it inappropriately, off-label, you're going to run into problems. Because of the opportunity that exists, and because there's really nothing else that competes with this, we want to be able to do this as pristine and as cleanly as possible, and to do it through the FDA in North America is the best way to go. And that's the decision that we've made.
Need to control it.
Wait, one last question. What's the Medtronic comeback to you? Medtronic is not going to walk away.
Well, Medtronic's having some problems right now. So they know what we're doing. They started to trial their own version. They can't really get into the putty space because our intellectual property blocks them. So they came out with a different, a block-like configuration. But in order to get the proper delivery of the BMP, they elevated the dose. They called the product Amplify. And unfortunately, Amplify did not work very well, and they've had a number of problems associated with increased cancer risk. They've just recently, yesterday, they just have a lawsuit dealing with racketeering, having had paid their surgeons to use the product. It's a real mess. And because of that, we want to be as pristine as possible. We want to do this the right way. We're going to be somewhat conservative, but we're going to enter into the dental market, which will give the investor a return on their investment, and also then, from that point, start moving into the other markets.
Okay, let's have a final wrap up. Start with Courtney, then Larry, and then Michael. You're the cleanup head over here.
Wrap up.
Yeah.
Do you see this as an opportunity to exploit the Trans-Pacific Trading Agreement between Canada, Asia, United States, even by way of strategic alliance with some key partners, or you haven't?
That's a very interesting question, and we thought about it at one point, but then we focused on North America, but certainly there's an opportunity there.
Larry, wrap up.
Sure. As I mentioned to you earlier, it seems to me to be an exciting product. I guess there are the questions that you'll find out about in the clinical trials, like triggering cardiac amyloidosis or overproduction. The very thing you're trying to get to grow, if it grows a little too much, it can cause problems with the kidney or the heart. But by and large, it strikes me as a critical need, particularly in people who have no alternative, use metals as opposed to organic devices. So I think it's a very exciting opportunity. I'm surprised that Medtronic has run into such problems with the war chest that they've got. It seems like you figured out a more clever mousetrap.
Well,
Could be
it
an
is-
exit strategy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's true. I mean,
Can't beat them, buy them.
eventually, yeah. That's another opportunity. There.
What do you get here for your $3 million to $5 million investment? I
About
didn't know
30%.
How much?
For $8 million, a 30% equity.
30%.
Okay. Michael, wrap up.
Yeah, a couple quick comments. The crossover question, I don't know, and I know you're the second hand as far as asking the question. I don't know how you do a crossover with the device trial.
Yeah.
Because that's usually a therapeutic where you assure the placebo group that they'll eventually get the study drug. Two ideas which we can talk about offline that you should look into pursuing is military applications, because that could give you additional safety data. And the other thing is, I think as far as looking forward when you are talking to venture investors, that your competitors will be more than in the synthetic space like Medtronic will be in the 3D bioprinting space.
Yeah.
And there's some just incredible tissue engineering going on, including in the bone space. And I think that it would help you if you at least considered addressing that in your presentation, because we're a consulting and GR firm, and we're getting more and more companies coming to us that are looking to go away from, except for good applications like dental, but for ones where you really need to be able to have great strength and bear great weight, looking to go to the advances in tissue engineering and 3D bioprinting.
So that's very certainly another opportunity that we actually have already started collaborations with, and there are opportunities there, but there's certain things that we can do that they can't do even in the functional space. So, but I mean, that's very good advice.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.